everybody. Welcome to the show. Good evening. Got a good one tonight here on a Wednesday in October. Okay. So let's just run through it all, shall we? On this October 16th, 2024, 6:59 p.m. on the East Coast, right where we've been doing this show since the beginning, all the way back in 2010, and then years before that, building up to it. The entire history of the show has really taken place within a 2-mile radius, and I'm ready for this latest edition, this latest amendment to the diary that is building after all this time. It's Wednesday, it's October, it's fresh. You're watching either on QuiteFrankly.tv, YouTube, Rumble, DLive, Rockfin, and beyond. But I am looking forward to our guest, which actually came from this audience. This is an audience that has introduced me to a lot of different things over the years, and this was a very intriguing situation. Her name is BX. BX. Almost like BX, the Bronx. BX investigates, and I forget how long ago it was, but on her channel, which only has like 3 videos on it, there's a 2-part series called The Darkest Corner of the Web, or it might be all 3. I forget, but I've been taking notes, and she's going to be on tonight to talk about the darkest corner of the web. She's an investigator, a citizen investigator who really has an eye for, sleuthing some very, very serious stuff. Now, we'll be able to talk about that, get some questions on the table, and then see where it all takes us. That'll be in just a little while. I just want to say right up front, thank you again for joining us, and one more time, a few more times before the end of the month, because I want these to sell out by November 1st. There are only now, I think, 10 spots left on Patreon to be a postcard sponsor, which means that every month you get a postcard from me, addressed by Lauren, scribbled on by me, and we want these gone. There's only 10 left, so we want them all gone. And if you become a postcard sponsor on Patreon, not only will your first delivery be one of these awesome Halloween cards that I found up in the Adirondacks, some vintage ones, but you're going to receive a Cocogram. That's right. You're going to get 3 chocolate coins from Yes Cacao Botanical Chocolates. So do that. You'll see. And it's like I said before, and I'll say it again, it's the best time of year to be in one of these mailing sponsorships like postcards or Polaroids or anything, because it's always holiday related and festive and all that stuff. I personally can't wait to write all these postcards. So there you have it. That's my plug for the evening. Become a sponsor of the show. This show has always largely been 99% driven by audience support. It is an exercise in free market economics and voluntarism. So please, if you're hanging out in the lounge, have a cup of coffee, have a crumb cake, whatever it is, make yourself at home, and I hope you come back tomorrow. All right, let's see here. First one up, let's get into the grab bag, because there are some things here that I think are going to be popping up in tomorrow night's show. That is no doubt going to be one where, at least up front, we're going to have some news on polling and desperate measures being taken by people who you would think, with all of their resources to fortify elections, you would think that they'd be a little bit more calm and collected, but it is literally the boy who cried wolf. It is literally the sky is falling. It is bribery to levels I have never seen before, whether it be reparations or business loans. What came out of the Kamala Harris Twitter yesterday? Going to give business loans to all black men who want 100% forgivable business loans. As long as you are of a certain skin tone, you're going to get business loans that are 100% forgivable. It's incredible what's going on right now as far as just the desperation. And you know she's desperate too. We talked about it yesterday with the whole Joe Rogan thing. That's an act of desperation as well, because nobody should ever allow her near any television cameras that is run by anything other than a staunch ally who's ready to edit everything she says down into the most concise soundbite possible. For her to be off script for probably up to 3 hours is unconscionable. So, but I mean, there's polymath polls that are incredible. It makes me ask a lot of questions about betting mentality and what gamblers think and what they see. I have a lot of questions for you on that. I also have some spooky topics that we're going to be getting around to again. I'm going to be dribbling those in a little bit, and on Friday night we'll see what happens. I'm working on a very special in-studio guest, and maybe we get him for a little while. We'll see. We will see. But yeah, let's get to some other stuff first. The first one I have up for you is right here. It's from Oddities Central. What the hell's going on over there? It's one of my favorite sites. Man complaining of indigestion has live cockroach in his intestines. Everybody's worst fears. Doctors at a hospital in New Delhi, India. So listen, God knows how cockroaches get into people in India, but I'm sure it's easier than any other place on earth. We're shocked to find a live 3-centimeter cockroach in the small intestine of a patient complaining of stomach ache and indigestion. A 23-year-old man recently came to the Fortis Hospital, Visal Kunj, to complain about stomach problems that he had been experiencing for about 3 days. He complained of severe abdominal pain and difficulty digesting food, which resulted in frequent bloating. The man had consumed street food at a night market a few days prior and suspected to be the cause of his health problems. Doctor decided that the best course of action was to conduct an upper gastrointestinal endoscopy, a procedure that examines the upper part of the gastrointestinal tract, to hopefully discover the cause of the man's symptoms. What they certainly didn't expect to find was a live cockroach. I don't know why they didn't expect to find that, especially eating street food in India. It was probably in the food. It's probably one of the main ingredients. There's just probably one bug that was alive. And he was so hungry, he just swallowed the whole damn thing. Or perhaps an egg hatched in there and had some time to grow up into a teenager. So, this actually doesn't even belong on odditycentral.com. It belongs on duh.com. All right, here's another one for you. This is from the Gateway Pundit. The Gateway Pundit headline, Biden-Harris, does it matter? The regime announces another $425 million package for Ukraine as Americans suffer from devastating hurricanes. $425 million more dollars. They find it in the seat cushions for this drug addict. But it's obviously not for him. The Biden-Harris regime announced on Wednesday that they were sending another $425 million to Ukraine to fight their losing war against Russia. As a reminder, none of the money is going to Ukraine will be audited. Via Grok AI, the U.S. has sent now $174 billion to Ukraine for their war effort. That's just what's on the books. Come on now. $62 billion was channeled through the Pentagon for military support. Over $46 billion was sent for humanitarian efforts. The Department of Defense announced $2.4 billion in security assistance to Ukraine in September. Meanwhile, the Biden-Harris regime has sent $474 million to Americans who survived Hurricane Helene in North Carolina in late September. Like we were saying with the whole FEMA thing. Yes, this is something that makes you... It highlights a hypocrisy. It highlights corrupt priorities for government, which always is the case whenever you put too much, even a little bit of power. Okay? I'm sure many people out there have seen people with far less power than a politician go nuts. Go nuts with it. But this money should not be going anywhere. All this money should be going in our pockets because we're working for it. And that's it. And when Hurricane Helene and Milton and everything happened, that is when we pour out our pockets to on the ground to people who are responding, to the movers and shakers in this country who are truly specialized in what they're doing, us. So there's no middleman, there's no skim, there's no nothing, there's no laundering through FTX, there's nothing. And, you know, I saw Grace, really graceful, put it out there, a little bit more perspective on this, you know, aside from the corrupt prioritization of where all this money goes and what they really care about. But in North Carolina, things are not all, you know, people are living in tents. And I've seen it reported that there have been now a really sad and disturbing string of hypothermia deaths. All ages, children, young adults, elderly, that people are living in tents right now, sometimes along the same river that rose up and destroyed everything that they own. And now in North Carolina at night, they have they're having nights that are dipping below freezing. So again, it's perspective. It doesn't legitimize FEMA or anything like that, but it just calls a very stinging amount of attention to how we are being played constantly. Okay. Let us see. Moving on up. Oh, here's another one for you. Now, tomorrow, maybe you guys and gals can show me this. This is like a scene out of The Godfather. There's some talking going on between Barack Obama and Joe Biden at Ethel Kennedy's memorial. And it's very strange here. Everybody's trying to read their lips and see what's going on. There seems to be a very intense conversation going on between these two. And some people, like I saw Kim.com say that he spotted Barack Obama tell Joe it's over. Whatever it's over means. Is that the election? Whatever the hell else. But you take a look at this, and I don't know if we're going to have some better lip readers out there doing their work. What are they talking about? Look at them. I don't know, man. I'm telling you, it's like a scene out of The Godfather, with the organs going in the background and all that stuff. And it's intense. They could be talking about nonsense. They could be talking about nonsense or something off topic. But it's just one of those things where you wish you could be a fly in the wall or have superhuman hearing or it's something else. But there's decent enough angles here for really good lip readers to do their job. You know, sometimes you get a profile of Barack Obama. Sometimes he turns his head completely. But I hope that somebody does something on this, and hopefully by tomorrow, because we have a little bit more time to do that. All right. Let's get this one started. We've got BX Investigates going to be on with us in just a little bit, and I am looking forward to it. I'm also looking forward to taking more calls from you in the second half, because we should have at least some time to throw the lines open just to build on the kind of open lines fiesta that we had last night when you were calling in. It was really nice to hear everybody just lighting up the phone lines again after that break in the Adirondacks. But we're back. We're back now, back in the New York groove. Where we were in New York the whole time, but, you know, it's not the same. All right. Don't go anywhere.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's run!
What do you guys think? Seeing some people already trying to figure it out in the chat room. Body language is everything. Yeah, well, it's not comfortable body language between Joe Biden and Barack Obama. Barack. It's not comfortable body language. That is for certain. But I'm not good with the lip reading. I guess I can practice. But there's that. All right. What else we have? Oh, a little bit something for you here. Tonight, I'll announce it again in the second half, but the after hours tonight on QuiteFrankly.tv when we conclude at 9 o'clock, here's what we have. We got the Al Smith dinner. That's going on again. So, well, we're going to go a throwback to Al Smith dinner, October 20th, 2016. That's Donald Trump's full remarks when he was there pretty much roasting Hillary Clinton. Remember that? That was a big night, October 20th, 2016. There's going to be that after hours. Then there's the Breitbart interview with Eric Prince from November 4th, 2016, which was an incredible day. I remember that on Breitbart on SiriusXM. SiriusXM Patriot. I was going to a client's house to train them, and I didn't want to leave the car because there's Eric Prince talking about the Wiener laptop and what the hell they found in there and what the FBI was doing and all. I mean, it's still something that's very, very unresolved. Very unresolved stuff and very serious. So we're just going to do some throwback stuff tonight, November 4th, 2016. After that, we got a parts 1 and 2 of Truth Stream Media. What is actually going on in North Carolina? That's about 2 hours. And then Astounding Mysteries of Self and Universe. Physicist Nassim Haramein. So we got some pretty good stuff for Rabbit Hole Wednesday tonight after the show ends. I hope that you're all there checking it out and hanging out, because it was great to see you all in the chat room last night. I was dipping in and out. I had a lot of things going on. And, of course, the Yankees won, going into Cleveland up 2-0. I feel a little bit better about that than going in there split 1-1. But that's all I have to report on. All right. Okay, now listen to this. This strange, ghoulish story from the New York Post. Spell-casting Kentucky woman arrested for abuse of a corpse and cooking body parts in a pot. A Kentucky woman who had been casting spells was arrested by police after they found a dismembered and partially cooked body at her home. Toralina Fields, 32 years old, of Mount Olivet, was busted Wednesday after cops found body parts in a mattress in her backyard and in a pot that was warm to the touch in her kitchen oven. The Louisville Courier Journal reported this, citing authorities. She was charged with abuse of a corpse, tampering with physical evidence, and obstructing governmental operations. Ugh. Cops arrived at Fields' home after receiving a concerning call from a maintenance worker hired by Toralina's mother, Trudy, who was the property owner. That worker told police that he couldn't get inside the house when he arrived on Wednesday morning. When we walked around to the back, he was shocked to see a dismembered corpse in the yard, according to reports. Damn. Well, I'm sure he's not sleeping well. He told cops that he feared the remains were those of Fields. The maintenance man told investigators he and Trudy had a confrontation with Fields on Tuesday. The accused corpse desecrator began casting spells and acted aggressive during the man's visit the day before the arrest. Casting spells. Cops arrived in the afternoon, but Fields didn't show her face until 11 p.m. after law enforcement obtained a warrant to legally enter the home. Fields emerged from the house covered in blood, and investigators found body parts throughout the home, including in the kitchen's oven where a warm pot contained disembodied pieces. Remains were also found in a mattress, stuffed, folded, and dragged from the house into the backyard, leaving a bloody trail, according to investigators. It's not clear whether or not Fields ingested any of the body parts. She was booked in Bourbon County Detention Center on Thursday. So then who the hell is it? I mean, that's just nuts. Just nuts. It's so crazy, man. It truly is. I mean, there's just so much going on here. So much going on all around us. And I know there's always nut jobs out there, but it seems a little bit more common. Just a little bit more common. Dark. But I'll tell you, we have someone here who not only meddles not say meddles, but dips into the darkness a little bit, but does it to kind of shine a sanitizing light on it. And that is BX. BX is joining us tonight. She's an independent researcher and mom who reports on fringe internet phenomena in an effort to raise awareness about sometimes very hard to detect online harms, especially when it comes to children. Now, I found her work through a few members of this audience, and I give people like her a lot of credit for getting so close to so many unspeakable evils in order to shed some, like I said, sanitizing light on this. But we have her here tonight, and I can't wait to speak with her because it is October and it is spooky. And BX, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Hi, thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. So where are you from? Are you in this area? You know, when I see BX, I think of the Bronx. So I don't.
I'm not in New York. It's funny because my name's Becca, and like I have a good friend, a couple good friends who always called me Bex. And so it was always BX, but then what was supposed to be Bex, but then people just started saying BX. And so it's like, well, we'll just roll with it.
Well,
but that's it.
Either way, you've done some great stuff. You've made some, and then after I was introduced to your work, I saw that you've been making some really awesome appearances and very well-deserved attention paid to your work. So I want to just start from the beginning because we are in an age where we have a lot of people out there who have taken advantage of what is very powerful consumer grade information technology to be doing some very good sleuthing work on behalf of a media that doesn't care about real stories anymore. We know that in the podcast world, true crime is one of the biggest, fastest growing genres out there. So it's always very fascinating to me to stumble upon work like yours. So I wonder, as an independent researcher, how did you get your start? Like, what was your how did this all get started with you with the internet-based investigations?
Well, so I've been a private investigator for a really long time. I was a licensed private investigator, or I still am. And so I've done a lot of in real life kind of work.
Oh, wow.
A lot of the stuff that I've done is usually family court stuff. So a lot of it is like child safety matters, which is something that as a mom, I've always taken very seriously. But it wasn't until, so I'm also a self-defense instructor and an ex-pro competitive shooter. And so I've always been doing a lot of like firearm safety and firearms, women's self-defense kind of stuff. And so all of that kind of merged when I started to go online and stream. I started out just streaming on Twitch, talking about guns, like it was pretty, flippant. But then suddenly I started to notice around me in the environment, in the landscape, there was a lot of really sinister stuff, like just a couple clicks away. And I started to kind of dive down the rabbit hole and investigate some of these pathways to child endangerment, child harm. Not just sexual exploitation, but also people who are trying to groom your kids to be mass shooters. And that ended up being a very real thing. I guess it's probably about 2.5 years now that I've been on this particular rabbit hole. It's finally starting, like you said, to get some recognition by mainstream outlets, which has been very vindicating.
Yeah, I can imagine, especially because when you're dealing with things that are so, I don't know, dark, it's better to feel like you're not alone. And at least there's it's almost like attention feels almost like a comfort than just being, that's at least the way I would feel if I was doing what you were doing. Now, with you being a licensed private investigator, that's really interesting to me because most people are out, and I've had conversations with like Mike King from Profiling Evil and a few other people who do court reporting and all that, and they admit that the sleuthing on the internet, people who are doing their own investigations, every average people with some good skills online and a little bit of common sense can really dig up some very actionable intelligence. But at the same time, if you don't have protocols and how to deal with evidence and all that stuff, you could ruin a case that really does have some merit and some legs just by mishandling of the investigation. So when you're out there, what does your investigative background tell you? Are you so obviously you're hitting the phones. You have to actually be talking to people if you're private investigating. It can't just all be internet searches and stuff like that. Do you have protocols to preserve evidence and all that?
Well, so it's funny that you mentioned that because I was just harping on this the other day. I saw this video of these like pedo hunter guys on Kick, and they just accosted this guy and like shoving a phone in his face and calling him a pedophile in a grocery store. And then one of them just comes up behind him and just like wallops him on the back of the head with a pumpkin, and the guy just falls. I'm like, well, now you're a felon because that's assault. You can't just be accosting people in grocery stores and calling them pedophiles and then assaulting them. That's a really bad way to handle these kinds of investigations. And a lot of people kind of got mad and say, well, you know, it's better than doing nothing. But really, if you're mishandling evidence, like you said, like if you don't know how to handle the evidence correctly, it might not even be actionable to the police. And who wants to call the police anyways after they've assaulted somebody? So, it's more likely that this guy just walked free after all of that. And they didn't really do any good at all. They're just trying to get their clicks on Kick. So yeah, absolutely. Handling evidence is important. And that's a skill that I already kind of have as a licensed private investigator. Everything that we collect in the field when we're, monitoring people or surveilling or watching for child endangerment issues, everything has to be admissible in court. In fact, I'm an expert witness in court. I could get called to court at any time to testify. And so, yes, very, very serious. And people who dive into this kind of thing, number one, a lot of times they don't know how to collect evidence that's actionable. And number two, a lot of times they'll get lost on rabbit holes that aren't even real. There's a lot of stuff on the internet nowadays that's just not even real. And they'll end up kind of going off onto a rabbit trail and getting lost. So I see that a lot too. Generally speaking, I don't recommend that people take this on without some kind of experience for a lot of reasons. Not only is it, could you compromise an investigation potentially, but also it's really mentally tiresome, and it's really kind of traumatic stuff that not everybody's maybe equipped to handle.
Yeah, I can imagine. Because we've done quite a bit of these deep dives with people who are veterans in this line of work that I think that you would actually have a lot of fun speaking with on the aside, just because you're so in the pocket there. But what you said there about chasing rabbits down rabbit holes and making connections that don't exist, that is something that I see a lot, and I think that, or I suspect a lot. And that's why when I look into somebody like you who has these licenses, this special training, at least as a background, it adds a whole new level of legitimacy to it, that at least you listen a little bit closer and you consider things that maybe you don't want to, because that's the other thing. There are people who just dismiss everything as paranoia. Not everything could be connected, which obviously not everything can, but on the other hand, there's something inside of most normal people that don't want the things that are sometimes very evident and happening right underneath our noses to be true. We're going to get into a little bit of that tonight once we get to what led you to what you call the darkest corner of the internet. But is there anything on that you'd like to comment on first?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a very underrated skill of a good investigator, is being able to set aside your biases, truly set aside your biases, and be willing to accept realities that you might not want to accept. Like, you might come in with a theory, but if you're so set on that theory being correct that you turn the other way when it turns out to be incorrect. I see that a lot, especially with people who are particularly political on one side or the other. It doesn't really matter which. If you're these people who are super, super political come in with a political slant and they're looking into it with a political bias, I see that really messing things up a lot, because they just don't want to admit when something, goes the other direction. I mean, I've seen things go both directions. I've been wrong. I've been wrong on theories lots of times, and it's one of those things where you have to work on a theory. So yeah, it's a we're professional conspiracy theorists. That's what we are, right? Because a conspiracy is just like a people conspiring to do wrong things. And you have to have a theory in order to connect all of these pieces. But if you're not willing to discard that theory and pursue, a new pathway that opens up in front of you, then you're not really suited for that kind of work.
Absolutely. I mean, a theory is essentially a hypothesis, and a hypothesis is a very pivotal part of the scientific method. So it's just, I don't discount it all. But there are other things there too. Hate to keep beating around the bush, but there's other things that keep popping up for me. Around 2018, 2019, were you aware of any of the things that were going on, the things that were being said and looked into with Wayfair?
I didn't really get into any of that stuff back then. So no, I can't say that I know too much about that particular rabbit hole.
Okay, because that was a very interesting one that I still think about from time to time. But again, it's one of those things where it became a internet feeding frenzy of everything that could go wrong with building a reasonable case that maybe in itself, in its very nature, sensational. But that's just something I think about often. And I don't know. Well, if you don't know anything about it, then we'll just set that aside. Okay, so
I think that I do. So I think that, and this might be the same thing, but there were people who were trying to do the same thing with like Etsy posts a few months ago. Like they were showing these AI generated images of like kids, and they were saying that it's like, oh, they're selling for $10,000. But then we looked into it, and then it was like really obvious that they had just created that account and put that stuff up like when the Twitter post was made. And so then you started to go, well, anybody could just do this. And then there's really there's nowhere to go with some of that stuff, because there's no outcome that you're going to find. Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's the same one, but it was sort of related. I thought it was funny because I sell art on Etsy. So
yeah, it's so I never heard of the Etsy this side of things, but the Wayfair thing, it kept up for a while. It built up, and it was very strange, and it had a lot of legitimacy to me, to it, at least to be curious, at least good enough to form a theory about it, a hypothesis. But anyway, we'll get around to that some other time. Maybe you'll do a crash course on it tonight, and suddenly you'll say, Frank, we got to talk about this. But what led you to finding, after, like you said, you have your career in private investigation, and now you're on the internet. You have a very, you have a vested interest in keeping children safe. You're a mom yourself. There's a lot of reasons for your motivations in doing this. But what led you to finding what you call the darkest corner of the internet, and more specifically, the satanic network with the call sign 764?
Yeah, so it's actually, so I have a 4-part video series online about this in case people want to dive deeper down the rabbit hole. It's all on my Rumble channel and on my Twitter. But basically, so like I had mentioned before, I had been investigating harms to children online and going down rabbit holes related to mass shootings. Particularly that a couple of notable mass shootings may have had connections to some certain online communities where these kids were being groomed to commit these, mass shootings as basically a terror attack. It's really funny reflecting back on that, because 2.5 years ago when I said this, people were mad and calling me insane. And I got so much hate for trying to bring awareness to this. And now 2.5 years later, it's, people are starting to understand that this is actually a fact and it's real. So that's kind of where I fell down this rabbit hole of a satanic neo-Nazi cult called Order of Nine Angles. It is a satanic cult. They are technically National Socialists or Nazis, right? Even though a lot of that seems to be kind of a guise, like a veil to shield the true intentions, which, in my opinion, is accelerationism. And accelerationism is an ideology or a set of tactics that basically promote chaos and terrorism and division and infighting and sowing discord and chaos within a nation to try to hasten its collapse. You're trying to accelerate the collapse of society by committing terror attacks, essentially. And so once I stumbled upon the Order of Nine Angles stuff, I started to look into that pretty deeply. And then it was in January, I think, that we saw this Kyle Spitz saga, which was really funny how that happened, right? Because we already kind of knew about the 764 groups because the FBI had already released a bulletin about it in September of 2023. But we hadn't really seen the activity online yet until that happened. So there was this video, which you might remember, of a guy whose stepdad was like running in, pointing a gun at him and saying he's going to shoot him. He's like, shoot me. And then the guy, fires. You could like see the bullet leaving the barrel in a fiery blaze. Like really just a crazy video. There's so much going on. He ended up shooting, the stepdad ended up shooting the stepson in the ear, and he was fine. And that video went viral. I don't know why. I guess it's because it was a crazy video. So people were sharing it with no context.
No, it was truly bizarre. And I remember.
Yeah, there's so much going on.
Like you said, the kid, whoever the hell is the cameraman, the kid, is in his room. The stepfather comes in. The mother's like attached to the stepfather, saying, "Don't shoot him! Don't shoot him!" Everybody seems strung out. Everybody seems to be just like most of us who watched it, and it was just like, "Oh yeah, I saw that video," and that was the last you thought about it. You attributed it to just white trash junkie behavior, and and that was the last time we heard of it. But it wasn't until I started reading your articles. It turns out that I mean, it's just because of your reporting that the stepdad and the mother are now both dead. Kyle is the kid is now in jail for all types of abuse to not only children and animals. And I mean, this was nuts.
Yeah. So what happened is, like whenever that video came out, I saw it just like everybody else and was like, that's crazy video, right? Meth addicts shooting at each other. Okay. But what I saw eventually, like I went to the comment section and I saw a couple of comments that concerned me. And the comments were from victims of Kyle Spitz. And these victims were saying this guy's affiliated with the 764 Child Predator Network. 764 is an online, it's an umbrella term because there's lots of different various splinter groups. And, there's, all these like different I guess, abbreviations and names of these groups, but 764 is kind of a general term. It's also a part of a larger community online, a cyber criminal community known as COM, which is short for community. COM has all kinds of cyber criminals. Have you ever heard of, well, I'm sure, have you ever heard of, have you noticed this uptick in school shooting threats and hoaxes lately? Yeah. Almost all of those come from this group. So that's another big part of this is like swatting and bomb threats and school shooting threats and stuff like that. But when I saw the comments linking him to this group, which 764 is a part of COM, but it's also it's much more focused on child abuse, and it's also overtly satanic. So they use satanic imagery and they use Order of Nine Angles kind of terminology and ideology when they're abusing kids into committing acts of self-harm, cutting themselves, carving their abusers' names into their bodies on camera, sexually exploiting themselves on camera. And then that content is used to further extort the victims to, get them to do worse and worse stuff. Like, for example, they might start by by sexually exploiting a child online and then threatening them and saying that if they don't continue to give them more content, they're going to SWAT their house or send all of their nude photos to their friends and family, get them in trouble. And so their demands of these kids become more and more extreme, up to including killing their pets, their cats on video, hurting themselves grievously, killing themselves even, trying to get kids to do the most evil stuff imaginable on camera. So when I saw the victims claiming he was part of this network, and nobody was listening to them because nobody knew what that was at the time, except for us, because we'd been paying attention to, we've been investigating Order of Nine Angles for a long time. And so we already knew about this group. I immediately tried to, talk to some of these victims and ask them if they had gone to the police and if I could help them in any way, because I do consider myself to be somewhat of a victim advocate. I'll try to contact some of these people online who are just screaming into the void needing help and try to connect them with local resources or, the FBI or wherever they need to go to get help. Because a lot of these kids are in a really bad way. They need help. Like immediately, right? They're being extorted by evil Satanists.
It's apparent It's apparent, 100%. But when you talk about authorities, I think about well, let me ask you this first, because this is part of what came to mind. Where does most of this take place? Because usually when someone does an expose on the murkiest aspects of the internet, they would usually be talking about the dark web, because, essentially 99% of internet users believe that the internet, all that is really there to it are the apps that we have on our phone, our favorite websites, and that's it. But there is a breakaway server. The analogy of the iceberg comes into play with what the internet's nature really is. We hang out on the tip of it. So when you do your work, where are you taken to the dark web, or is this all happening on the platforms?
It's all happening on the surface web.
Jeez.
All of it. All of it. All of it is happening on Discord, Telegram, even places like Twitter. We've had a really hard time getting Twitter to ban accounts that are posting this really egregious self-harm content. Kids, so one thing is, like, a lot of people, like, I've had the unfortunate experience of having to see, to investigate child pornography networks and stuff like that. Obviously, I avoid seeing that kind of material at all costs. That said, there's a big difference between what this group does and what normal child sexual exploitation networks do. This is, instead of seeing child exploitation content like you typically see, you're seeing bloody satanic sigils drawn on the wall with blood and gaping wounds, and kids cutting themselves deeply, and like just really violent, traumatic stuff that's coming out of this group. And it's all, you can see it if you go to the correct Twitter page. You could see it on Twitter right now. You could go in a Discord server and find it. You can see it on Telegram. So all of this stuff is actually happening right out in the open, which is what's honestly so alarming about it, because I think a lot of people don't even realize that stuff is there.
Yeah. I remember. See, this is what I would say. What's most concerning. Like 3 years ago, it was on Valuetainment with Patrick Bet David's big channel. And he interviewed a whistleblower, a Facebook whistleblower. He was a content moderator. His name was Sean Spiegel, if I remember correctly. Not that Frances Hagen woman that they brought before Congress to talk about how tough it was to be a girl on the internet. I'm talking about, Spiegel was talking about calling attention to how hard it was at Facebook, where these content moderators needed like therapy for what they were seeing.
Yeah.
And it was almost impossible to remove it from Facebook. We're talking about
very traumatic.
Yeah. And it's not even just about groups dealing in illicit abuse-based materials, some of it ritualistic in nature, but they weren't just sharing them, the gore, the smut, and all that stuff. They weren't just on private groups on like Facebook and anything like that, but they were selling it with Facebook marketplace tools, and they were making a killing. Like the economic tools on these platforms have not even been turned off to them, and it was impossible to get the content off sometimes. That is very, very strange.
It's maddening because, as my investigation of this group would progress, that I would, so I guess going back to like my story, which we got sidetracked,
Sorry.
but it'll come full circle, I promise. But, I was, starting to, report on this eventually after Kyle Spitz's mom died bizarrely, and he posted a video of his mother's dead body, and all of this crazy stuff was happening behind the scenes while his video was going viral. Nobody was paying attention to like the real story, right? Which was that he was a member of this bizarre satanic child exploitation network, and now his mother from the video is dead, and he's there's a video of him like with his mom's dead body, and it's bizarre. And at that point, I was asked by some of the victims to make a post trying to draw attention to this situation because the victims were upset. They felt like there was a disservice and an injustice being done because they said that he was getting interviewed, like he got interviewed by Law and Crime, Jesse Weber's up here. We're so glad you're okay. You're such a victim. And the actual victims were in the comments like, this guy's not a victim. Why is no one listening to us? So I obliged them and made this post and ended up getting like a lot of traction. And I think that's really when most people heard about 764 for the first time. But because I was drawing attention to the group and because I'd done a lot of research and I had already linked it to O9A and I was reporting a lot on the group, I ran into trouble with some of his friends because his friends did not want me talking about it. And so I started to get a lot of threats. And I started to get a lot of harassment from members of this cult. So at that point, and since this has been going on since January, so for the last 9 months or so, they'll send me this really abusive, traumatic content in my DMs. They'll gloat about hurting kids to me personally. They'll post on Twitter, tweet at me, and threaten my family. My family's been threatened. So I've been trying to report that stuff to Twitter, and it'll take Twitter 2 weeks to remove something like that after I report it, which is completely unacceptable. I mean, Twitter and all platforms, like you just mentioned, have various moderation tools that are highly advanced and should theoretically be able to remove this kind of content immediately. And yet, if you use the wrong word on Twitter, if you use a politically incorrect term, you'll still get suspended automatically, right?
Yeah.
So their priorities are still backwards. I'd say it's not better than it was on Twitter or X, I guess.
What about prison time? I read that a few have already gone to prison. Is that just because of the way that they live and they eventually got caught up in the system, or is it because of some of the light that you have shed on crimes that are being committed?
So Kyle Spitz, when I started to report on him, he wasn't arrested yet. I made several police reports on it myself because I had evidence, and I feel like it was, that it needed to get seen and escalated. Eventually, a young victim of Kyle Spitz did come forward, and I think about 2 days after they did the forensic interview on her, she was 12 at the time of her abuse. They arrested Kyle Spitz within 2 days and charged him with, I think, 8 different counts of various felony charges. In fact, today I just found out that there was a motion for continuance for his trial, and they mentioned in there that he's looking at multiple life sentences. So, Jeez. Yeah, no, Kyle Spitz is never getting out of jail. Like, that dude's done. And he's not the only one who's been arrested. There's been at least, I'd say half a dozen high-profile arrests, and probably dozens more that we really don't know about. And part of the reason that we don't hear about all the arrests is because some of the people involved are minors themselves. And that's a really important thing to note, which is that while we usually hear about the adults in the room that are getting arrested, I'd say the majority of people connected to this group are minors themselves who are abusing other minors. Which is really sad when you think about it, because not trying to give them passes or anything, but there was one person online who'd been threatening me and my family with really illegal threats for like several weeks, and I'd made multiple police reports about it. And I came to find out that eventually came to find out that he was 13 years old. So that was a really eye-opening moment where I started to realize some of these kids are honestly where's the line where they're a victim of child abuse themselves, right? And grooming. It's hard for me to blame a 13-year-old. Don't get me wrong. I think he needs a swift kick in the butt and sent to military school or something till he's 18. But, a lot of these kids do come from abusive households, and they're groomed themselves online by bad actors. And that's part of their goal of corrupting the youth and subverting the youth and promoting generational trauma. That's the goal of this satanic neo-Nazi cult behind some of this more egregious abuse.
You were talking about, obviously, the threats, but just right here, you're talking about a 13-year-old, and you're talking about these full-grown adults and perhaps higher profile arrests associated with this. And what that begs inside of me is a question about hierarchy. Do you know whether or not there is a hierarchy, there are higher ups within this group, or is it really just a network of, people who are part of a club? There's no ranks. It's just you are what you are. Or is there a hierarchy to this cult?
There's a hierarchy at the O9A level. At the 764 level, it's mostly just like a decentralized network of really terrible, shitty kids, and some adults who are doing this kind of thing within the group for status, like who can do the most evil thing. And if you can do the more evil thing than this person, then you have status over them, but it's really all immaterial. At the higher level, when you get into O9A and some of the splinter factions, like the more ultra violent groups like Satanic Front, and various other networks that are related to O9A, there's definitely hierarchy, and there's definitely people I've been contacted by who are a bit spookier. Getting contacted by 764 members who are just screaming death and rape threats at you and your family. At first, that's very jarring, especially knowing that some of these guys can hack, and if they can hack and find your address, they will SWAT you, meaning they'll call the police and call fake bomb threats to your house and other stuff that can be really bad. So they are dangerous in their own right. But when you talk to them, it's all fire and nastiness. But when you talk to the O9A guys, they're very polite, very well spoken, very educated. There's a really notable dichotomy between those two groups. The O9A are definitely more organized. So, yeah, if that answers your question.
It does. And, I remember in your work that the mass shooter from the Walmart shooter was connected to this group.
Not the Walmart shooter, the Tops grocery store shooting in Buffalo.
Gotcha. Yeah. Tops. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Whenever that happens, people, especially in our neck of the woods on the internet and who read into the things that we do, usually assume that this was Project Orion, CIA, MK Ultra, something going. And I suppose it shouldn't be totally dismissed because when you talk about accelerationism, there's no greater way to accelerate things than to send in a mind-controlled plant to do a job that really just shakes up the whole world, an assassination, a bomb, whatever the hell it is, a trauma. But it may or may not be the case, but I'm curious why you think people outside of blackmail would allow themselves to fall into that trap of thinking that isolated acts of violence would physically change anything for the better or the worse, or unless, of course, their goals is the worse.
I mean, it's very sophisticated brainwashing that they subject these kids to, and they're very good at identifying vulnerable people and targeting those people specifically. So they're going to pick the neurodivergent kid. They're going to pick the weird loner who likes to look into mass shootings, right? They're targeting kids based on their vulnerabilities, and they're very good at it. And they're very good at fooling them and indoctrinating them and throwing all this like white nationalist, white crazy, neo-Nazi stuff at them until they basically just groom them into what they want them to be. And obviously, most people aren't going to kind of be the correct vulnerable target, but they know how to find those guys. Yeah. When it comes to the CIA stuff, where, I guess everybody wants to point fingers at the FBI. I personally don't think the FBI is even effective enough to pull something like that off. I'm not even going to give them that much credit. I don't think that they're capable of doing something like that. However, when you talk about the hierarchy and the O9A type of stuff, there are people in that vicinity that I would absolutely not be surprised at all to learn had intelligence connections, possibly even foreign intelligence connections, right? I mean, our foreign adversaries would be foolish not to use this pathway to potentially attack the West. Of course they're doing it. Of course they are. And we saw some of this happen. This was a theory I had for a long time. And then in part 3 of my docuseries, I talk about the maniac murder cult, MKU, and the big arrest they made of a ringleader named Butcher. And this guy was inciting terror, trying to solicit terror attacks against New York City children. He was trying to get somebody to poison school children with Christmas candy laced with ricin. I mean, this guy was a maniac. And he was doing it all from overseas in Eastern Europe. MKU is a Ukrainian Russian-based cult, and they're out there grooming kids. And those people aren't the FBI. They're literally sitting in Moldova on the internet, grooming kids. So I'm sure that it's not just one. I'm not willing to make any blanket statements whatsoever. I think that it's a mixed bag. However, a lot of this stuff, when you get into the really deep layers, it's very reminiscent of Operation Gladio, if you're familiar with that term at all.
Very much so.
We've got neo-Nazi accelerationists inciting violence and infiltrating neo-Nazi communities and injecting Satanism into them and trying to get people to go off the rails and commit terror attacks. And it fits the strategy of tension perfectly. So whether this is still something that's operated at a clandestine level, or it's something that has just been picked up on by various groups that genuinely do want to harm the U.S. For their own malicious purposes, I think it could be either of those or a combination of those.
I think it's the combination. Me personally, I think it's a combination. I think it's more the former than the latter, but definitely both, because when you think about the opposites, especially when Gladio was launched, it was to really marshal the remaining Nazi and fascist holdovers in Europe to make sure that communism, which was then buddied up with and teamed up with during the war, did not spread into Western Europe, and they tried to hold that at bay, especially in Italy and all the Mediterranean countries over there. But then, but when you think about that, they are the evil twin sisters, communism and fascism. And communism, in many ways, is mainstream popular culture over here. So even though they're similar in the fact that everything is centralized and it's all about totalitarian control, they just have they have slightly different foundational beliefs, but they're always at each other's throats. And whereas the mainstream culture is very left, I can see how, as a part of a acceleration toward a civil unrest, you would want to bring fascism to the forefront, and you want to get that fascist flair to start bubbling up and get ready to fight their old pals, the communists again.
It could be that, or it could be we're looking at it, if we're including communism, looking at it from a slightly outdated perspective, whereas communism was what got everybody hot and bothered back then in the 70s, 60s and 70s and post-World War II through the Cold War. Now we're seeing neo-Nazi ideology and anti-Semitism cause more of a scare and more of a fuss, right? They're going to focus on anything that they can focus on that's going to create division and fear. So, world events are obviously going to shape their preference for that. But the neo-Nazi, that's basically what I've seen most of all, is this National Socialist angle.
Yeah.
That's the undercurrent of all of it. Be it white nationalist or be it proud, some of it's like Patriot Front, Blood Tribe type of groups that go marching at anti-LGBT stuff. All of these groups are connected to the same network of people.
But of course, there's that one aspect that sets it all apart and makes you scratch your head, and that is the Satanism.
It does make you scratch your head, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. That's because what do we get on a mainstream level is the left is afraid of Christian nationalism and people with any kind of a Christian sense of morality really gaining control or any kind of natural influence over the culture again. It's certainly we see the Satanism from a technical standpoint, the worship of the human experience, the humanist experience, not even necessarily. A lot of people on the left don't even know or even acknowledge the existence of the spirit. They just pretty much double down on anything that is corporeal in experience, and that's it. So it's a strange thing to think about, because you wonder where it comes from and who is it. Like, even just the fact that people are posting anything, that people are still posting anything online that could potentially be considered criminal. I mean, are there must be just very
boggles
large,
the mind.
Exactly.
But I would say about the Satanism stuff is that, and I've gotten pushed, like, oh my gosh, like I've had like the Church of Satan official Twitter page breathing down my neck this entire time. I'm not even kidding. Because they're mad that we're conflating Satanism is actually just our Satanism, and this doesn't count as Satanism. And what they're saying, I don't agree with. I'm going to call it Satanism because that's what it is, right? But this type of Satanism that we're seeing being, in my opinion, intentionally injected into neo-Nazi National Socialist movements is a very sinister left-hand path acceleration-based new brand of Satanism that's based around accelerationism and promoting evil. And so when you're injecting these kind of ideologies into these groups, it could be seen as a way to push these people to doing more. It could be seen as provoking them to go commit actual acts of violence, provoking them to go do evil things, to abuse kids. And so this is a much, much more extreme brand of Satanism that we're seeing emerge in all of these spaces.
Okay, well, let me ask you real quick one last question about the Satanic Panic then, because I had this conversation with a friend of mine, Jay Dyer. And we were going deep into this, I think sometime last year, because there was a lot there. You think about it in the 1980s and all throughout the 80s, I believe it was probably half of it was warranted. And then at the same time, obfuscated by soccer mom red herrings. And it just, this seems to be one of those things there too, where there's a lot of still, please, with all that paranoid delusional stuff. What are you reading all the Q drops? You Q-tard. I mean, there's always a reason to dismiss this stuff, especially when it comes down to being on one side of a political line or another, like you were saying before. Yeah. So, thinking about, and I know that you know a little bit about the Satanic Panic because you have referenced it on your Twitter. Thinking about where we were in the 1980s and early 90s with that. Where do you think we are as far as 2024 in either validating some things back then, or maybe we had it wrong and it was just a different trajectory this whole thing was on? What do you think?
Yeah, no, it's definitely still totally relevant. In fact, I was pretty shocked I guess when I started reporting on this, I was just reporting facts, right? I was seeing them as facts. And in fact, the FBI had already come out and acknowledged, like the FBI in 2024, the FBI has acknowledged the existence of a satanic child abuse cult, which is that's tremendous, right? So I wasn't really expecting as much pushback as I received when I started talking about this stuff. I've received pushback, and a lot of times people, I think, misunderstand what I'm saying too. Like either they think that this is like a Q drop kind of thing, or like, it's a Pizzagate kind of satanic pedophile elite ring or whatever. A lot of people also have misinterpreted what I'm saying when it comes to like neo-Nazis. Like a lot of people try to conflate that with like right-wing stuff. And so a lot of right-wing people will get angry and be like, whoa, how dare you use the word neo-Nazi? But I don't know what else to call them. It's like, just like I don't know what else to call these guys except Satanists. I don't know what else to say when they're National Socialists who want to reinvigorate what Hitler started. Like those people do exist. They're really extreme. And it's not the same thing as saying the right or even the far right. I mean, these people are National Socialists. They're not right-wing. So I don't like the word far-right extremism either. And I've also gotten National Socialists mad because they think that I'm trying to say that National Socialists are inherently satanic, which again is not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is that these Satanists have infiltrated these communities and are trying to convert people to Satanism for some reason. I think that's the takeaway there. But as far as like, just people discrediting me and stuff, I think that was probably the hardest part of this entire thing was, I would see these things happening, and I would try. Like, there was one situation recently where like I saw these Satanists infiltrating a community online where I was, I had some like mutuals in the community. And I tried to like, warn them privately, like, hey, there's some like really bad actors in here who are part of a satanic, National Socialist cult. And basically they like laughed at me and called me crazy. And so like, my experiences was really just that like early on, people were just not listening, or they weren't ready to hear it. Or maybe I legitimately just sounded crazy, or maybe I wasn't explaining myself properly. But yeah, it's definitely been challenging to get this story out there. And I think one remarkable thing, though, is that the mainstream media has started actually covering this now. And there's like actually a lot of news outlets and media outlets that are starting to run stories on this that we're going to see come out next year, early next year. So there's still more vindication coming. Like the cavalry is out there. They're just like producing content right now. But I've been interviewed by some very big outlets that'll hopefully come out soon.
Well, that's the other thing I have to keep reminding myself, and all the time that I spent, pulling together some research and some friends of mine helping me with that for tonight, is that this is all, I mean, I know that your career spans beyond 2024, but let's just talk about the Spitz situation. That's February of this year, and we're just in October. I mean, this is, in a grand scheme of things, it's a lot happening in a very short period of time. And there is still a very rocky reforming of the new media landscape. It is not nearly as censored as it was in the past. At least there are cracks. There are cracks to get through now, whereas it was once, not too long ago, a very, very tough, unending concrete wall. And it will be interesting to keep an eye on this going into the new year, because it's not like it's been dragging out for a while. There's a lot happening all at once, and I appreciate you coming on to do this with us tonight. So what are you just holding down the fort from here on in? What are you working on? Do you have a stream schedule, or what do you do that you would want people to keep an eye out for?
Definitely put out most of my stuff on Twitter. YouTube has repeatedly banned my channels and removed my videos for no apparent reason. But you can also watch my videos on Rumble. I also have a Substack that I work on. I put out a lot of more detailed articles and stuff that you can check out on Substack. And that's also a good way to support me, because I don't really have any channels that are, I don't really have any channels or anything that I want to promote, except I guess just follow this story on Twitter,
is your Rumble,
Substack.
BX on Rumble?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
BX on Rumble is okay. That's great. So at least I have that up there. And I think in the description of the episode, I have your Twitter, and hopefully people will find your way. And also on Twitter, I have you tagged in the title of the show. So
okay. Yeah.
That's great. And you know what? Along the way,
and you can buy my art too on that link. Yeah, I do art
on Etsy, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Fantastic. Well, that's great. So I hope people support your journalism and your art. And as things break, please keep in touch with us, because I would love to keep doing little checkups on this, especially as we get closer and closer to 2025, which is looking to be even crazier than 24.
Oh, yeah. And like I said, you're going to see a lot of mainstream stories run about this, maybe even some like docuseries on mainstream streaming platforms on this. Like, it's going to be a big deal. I always say I'm not crazy, I'm early.
That's a great way of putting it. Well, that's BX. It's awesome to have you on. And I hope it's just the first of many appearances. So be well, and I hope everybody comes in and follows your work going forward.
Thanks, Frank. I appreciate you.
All right. Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye. All right, everybody. Let's go, and we're going to start taking your calls. I'm going to have a really quick break. It's 8:07 p.m. on the East Coast. We are in the second hour officially. When we come back, we're going to be taking calls on 914-200-0269. What do you think about it? This audience has got to have something to say. You must. And we're only 90 seconds away from hearing what you have to say, so don't go anywhere unless you have to take a leak or something like that. Go fix yourself a nice, tall glass of bubbling Topo Chico And when we come back, I'm going to be opening up the phone lines and we'll start digesting this a little bit. Very, very interesting stuff. I have some other things that came in and a little bit of a preview for tomorrow, and we'll be kicking off down that dusty trail. All right, don't go nowhere.
It's intermission time, folks. Time out to press the like button.
Quite frankly.
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 Quite frankly. Quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly, guys.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
Quite frankly.
So everybody watch, quite frankly, with Frank.
How dare you?
All right. This song is by Kevin MacLeod. It's called Darkest Child. And I put it into the Quite Frankly Autumn playlist that everybody should go be checking out. I'll still be adding more to that. And soon the Quite Frankly Winter and Holiday playlist will be coming out in forthcoming newsletters. But whenever this pops on, Aurora loves this song. She loves this song. We're in the car or something. She's in the back seat. And this comes on, and she pretends that, well, we both pretend together. She goes, "What's that sound?" And then we all start looking around, like, I don't know. And then she says, "There's pumpkins." "What are those pumpkins?" And this is where pumpkins come out, and they all start walking on their vines, and they're circling around the car, and we have these like imagination sessions and stuff. Oh, I love it. I love it. But she's getting to the point where all the things that we pretend about, she's embarrassed to do it in front of other people. Like, I'll give you some examples some other time. We're totally off topic. Anyway, I don't know. Everything reminds me of Aurora. Let's go down into the comments. Jay Britt says, BX is very interesting investigator and not difficult to look at either. Great show. Thanks, Frank. Very, very interesting indeed. And the fact that there is a private investigation background there is really good for legitimacy, because again, there's a lot of people who have just fallen into deep diving on any number of things, and they're great researchers, and they throw it together and they put their presentations out on TikTok, this, that, and the other. But if you're getting into exposing operations like this that are very, very present all around us and we can't see it, and usually, like I said, that would be like the domain of the dark web. But the fact that we've been learning about this now for a while, it is all over the place. And if you have not seen that, we don't have it tonight on the after hours, but maybe sometime soon we will. Put it on your to-do list to either watch it or rewatch the episode that Patrick Bet David did with Sean Spiegel. He was a Facebook whistleblower and content moderator over there. It'll make you sick to your stomach. Sick to your stomach. And the stuff that was going on, it's not only just how hard it was to get content taken off, to convince the higher-ups at Facebook that abuse of animals and children and all that stuff was a violation of terms of use. We can't mention Eric Chiaramilla's name. People were losing their accounts on YouTube for a couple of months in 2018-19 because of Eric Chiaramilla. Remember that? I won't have an account tomorrow. If I'm not live tomorrow at 7 o'clock, go to quitefrankly.tv. And it's because of Eric. So it's crazy to hear people come forward and talk about how impossible it is to label things so heinous as terms of service. Not only just a crime against humanity, because that's what it really is, but of terms of service violation. Just nuts. And that's just the surface of it, because the bigger level is that there's financial incentive. It's not even just that there are people in private groups who are sharing things and it's and then you can't find it on the surface of Facebook. It's all in private chats and all that. There are financial transactions going on with native marketing tools, and it's some sick shit. That's sick. So when you talk about Telegram or Discord or anything else. It's Twitter, obviously, even before and after Elon Musk's acquisition of it. Oh, it's painstaking, the pace, but it's more so the people, the fact that it's out there and that it is it spreading? Is it happening more and more? I'd love to know what you guys think about that. 914-200-0269. Give me a call. Just give me a call. All right, what else do we have? Jared says, great guest last night, Frank. I really enjoyed the show. Also, regarding King's contribution to a future raffle, if he's offering to eat the winner's ass, I will have to respectfully decline if selected. Yes, I'm sure a lot of people will, if that is the case, but King has not actually even followed up on that. I have no clue what he was offering up for a raffle. I have not gotten a follow-up on that, and I have nothing to report. But your terms are acceptable. They are acceptable. All right. Everybody's having a good time over there on Rumble. And while the phones are heating up, and now I'm getting a pinwheel over here. I wonder if people are getting blocked from calling in on Zoom. If it's not one thing, it's the other. Paulie9363 says Aaron Judge is amazing. Well, hopefully he's waking from his slumber at the right time. C. Blanche, thank you so much. Robert Sarnes, thank you. Braves Piano and Uncensored Abe. Good to have you on. Now, I have something else over here from a member of the audience. I think this is on, actually we have a happy thing, and then we have something on dreams from last night. First, the anniversary. We have an anniversary out there. Listen to this. This is from Big Paws. Big Paws the Orca. Whoa. Bunny Mom is the most wonderful person I know on this earth. She exudes grace and love in everything she does. Bunny Mom. Sounds fantastic. Except driving. Bunny Mom's not a good driver. She's working on the driving. In the past 2 years, we have truly become partners, cooking, fitness, dominoes, working the garden, listening to podcasts, like Quite Frankly. No matter when or where, we will dance. When our song comes on, she is blessed. She has blessed me with her love and care and roast. And potatoes. Roast and potatoes? That's what you meant? Let's see. And esposas and fafos. Does anybody know what a fafo is? I'm in love with you, baby seal. And I love you. And Huzzy and Nala, a.k.a. the Fluff Pack, my family. I'm looking forward to our future. Whether it real or simulation, I will find you in every lifetime forever. I almost feel like I'm part of the relationship now. Oh, God. If anybody has any anniversary wishes or anything like that, please send in more messages like that. So, I don't know. I'm sorry. People don't know what the hell just happened. I had to read an anniversary wish. Today's an anniversary, but that was something new. All right, the lines, hold on. I just restarted. I'm restarting Zoom because there's something wrong with it. I want to take your calls, and there's a lot of people watching, so there's absolutely no way that there's nobody calling, especially after a topic like this. So I'm restarting the Zoom, and hopefully that takes care of it. 914-200-0269. This one is from Selena. It's from last night about dreams, but it's the second half, and it's open now to anything, any comment, whatever you have. Selena says, Frank, I haven't been able to watch live much recently, so I just watched last night's show this morning. This is kind of on topic, kind of not. Once my ex-boyfriend was taking peyote. He tried to get me to take some too, but I was tired. I had to work the next morning, so I went to bed. I had a horrible dream that night that he had killed me and was dismembering my body in the bathtub. When he and I were talking later the next day, he started telling me that he had a bad trip and was telling me that while he was tripping, he envisioned himself dismembering me in the bathtub. Of course, I was like, get the hell out of here. I dreamt that. Very weird. I'm not sure if he could see my dream because he was on peyote or if the peyote he took was able to make me dream what he was tripping. Either way, it was creepy AF. Every time I hear peyote mentioned now, it's all I can think about. Well, I'm happy that he's an ex-boyfriend. I'm happy he's an ex-boyfriend, Selena. That's number one. Number two, I don't think that the peyote he was taking... Let me see here. I'm not sure if he can see my dream because he was on peyote, or if the peyote he took was able to make me dream. No, I wouldn't think that. It's something else to say that the peyote allowed him to receive things that you were broadcasting in your own sleep. But the fact that I don't see how the peyote can make you. I don't think so. He was the enhanced one, but the real question is who originated the dream? From, who of you was the progenitor of that dream? Was it something mutual? Was it you and he received it? I don't know. That's just weird. And I'm happy that it is I'm happy that he's an ex. So that's all I have for you. Okay. Well, that's what I got. That's what I got on that. Now, on the other hand, just a couple of thoughts, and I guess I'll just get off a little bit early tonight because this is what I had. I mean, I can go into the Elon Musk optimist thing. I thought that some of this was really freaky, and especially last night's talk with Tony Merkel about AI and the robots and whether or not this the grand scheme is to have these vessels, these mechanical vessels that are being prepared for a mass possession event. A mass possession event. When Jesus drove the demons into the pigs, they're just like, please, please, please don't send me back to hell. Just allow me to go back to those pigs. At least I'm here. At least I'm having some kind of a physical experience. Well, what if these are the new pigs? What if this Optimus, I should say, what if Optimus is the new pigs? There they are marching in a line. Now, Elon Musk would probably say, no, it's impossible. But can you really make that guarantee? Especially farther down the line? How much farther down the line? Now, here's something that that BX had said on her Twitter not too long ago, and it made me think of some stuff. She said the spread of Satanism within extremist communities wasn't an accident. It was 100% by design. Unfortunately, right now, we can only see the edges of what could be the biggest conspiracy of our lifetime. It's definitely an element of the biggest conspiracy. It's definitely an element. It's definitely one of those. But, this is what was strongly suggested in that docuseries done about David Berkowitz and the Son of Sam. It was actually called Sons of Sam. And it was very well laid out and suggested that the story that was fed to the public, that it was one mentally disturbed man doing his thing in 1977 or 78, whenever it was. But in reality, he was a disturbed fall guy for a burgeoning nationwide network of cult activity, real cult activity, which included everything from snuff films to ritual sacrifice and all that other stuff. And that was back in the late 70s. Then there's the satanic panic of the 80s into the early 90s. And now here we are 30 years after that. And it just makes you wonder. It always makes me wonder. Damn, this is one of those nights I'll be walking out of this building looking over my shoulder. Just one of those things, man. Let's see here. Got people in the Discord saying she is a champ, Frank. Praying for her safety. Wonderful guest. Well, I hope that she is. I can't wait to see what 2025 brings, because all the articles she's written on this stuff so far has been something quite impressive. I just restarted the Zoom again, and right off the bat, somebody called in. 317, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hey, Frank, it's Michael. How you doing?
Welcome to the show, Michael. It's good to hear from you.
Hey, it's the first time I've ever called, but I love your show. I've been watching you for a couple of years at least, and you're one of the best.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Regarding possession of electronics and equipment, I just had a thought that I thought I'd bring up to you since you might be able to do a dive on it at some point. But there's this substance that's talked about called red mercury.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of that?
No. Is it like black goo?
No. It's a substance that apparently from what I've only just surface level looked at what it is, and it's like a mercury, I guess, but it's red, and it's in computing equipment, and it's particularly in like old televisions, old radios, old in computers when they were first out too. So apparently there's like a whole underground market of people that salvage this stuff, and it has a market value, and people sell it. And there were even some items that the Nazis had that they used like in the field in the wartime that had red mercury in it. So I'm wondering if like somewhere in the Optimus or in some of these technologies, they've planted these points of connection to the spiritual realm that we don't even know about. It's just like a chip or an onboard. It kind of, the old capsule, they're like little capsules, and they kind of look just like a TV tube, you know, plugged in. Just somewhere in the board, it's just like somewhere plugged in. They're just in there, and people like don't even know what, and it has all these weird properties to it. So I'm wondering, you know, like, okay, so what they really needed to do was figure out how to make actuators and and limb articulators, and all the servos and the special kinds of mechanical engineering was needed to be developed. But, you know, once they have a human body form, like, then they can operate, because, you know, these demons, like they're supposedly, you know, passed away fallen angels or passed away humans or Nephilim or however you want to look at it. So they have a body shape, and so they're used to using a body shape as their modus operandi when they were like physical. So my thinking is that, maybe they've just put something on board that allows them to actually inhabit it. It's like a technology, a spirit technology.
Well, for something as ancient as a disembodied spirit or a fallen angel or something like that, I don't think it matters how many appendages they have and whether or not they got 3 legs or 2, and like, I got to get used to this. I think that would not be an issue whatsoever. Just in my mind, if we're going to play that hypothetical game. But as far as hiding technology that's so advanced, almost like planting a seed for a far off future that would never be identified by anybody on a vast array of circuit boards or whatever the hell it is. That's not something I would discount off the bat. You know, I wouldn't. It reminds me of the chips that they put in all the clone troopers they're there for Order 66 in Star Wars. You know, they had to make all of these clone troopers with some kind of mechanism in there so that when the time comes for them to all turn on the Jedi and to become loyal servants of now the Emperor and not the Republic, then if you're a mastermind that is trying to take over an apartment building, let alone a planet, you would probably plant little seeds like that you can cash in on down the road. That would not really set up a lot of red flags. So listen, as far as theories go, I think it's a valid one. And thank you for calling in, Michael.
Yeah, check out the red mercury.
I will. I'm going to look at it right now. Thanks for the call. Here's what I have on red mercury. This is what the AI overview gives me. Red mercury is a fictional substance that is a subject of many rumors and conspiracy theories. I already love it. The hoax is that the red mercury is likely a hoax created by con artists to swindle buyers on the black market for arms. Nuclear material. Some believe that red mercury is powerful nuclear material that could cause the apocalypse, Armageddon. Armageddon, not apocalypse. AI doesn't even know the difference between apocalypse and Armageddon. Nuclear material is going to show us the truth. The fuck? See, I'm talking to you. It's all stupid. That's because there's some hippie loser that was just like, apocalypse means end of the world. And therefore, the artificially intelligent computer adopts it. Vampire bats. Some believe that red mercury can be found in the nests of bats. Caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Frank, how are you?
Hey, go ahead.
Hey, Chris in the Berkshires. What's going on?
Good to hear from you, Chris.
As always, you asked in the Twitchies, and I'll reply. You know, you said somebody called in, so I got you covered.
There you go.
Either way, I remember we're roughly the same age, and it's just crazy. You know, I hate to sound like that the Reverend's wife in The Simpsons wants somebody to think of the children. But kids have such an ability. Like, I remember we're roughly the same age. When the internet came out, there was always like that small group of kids that could find, like, you know, Kennedy's autopsy pictures or something strange and creepy, and you'd be like, no, that kid's whacked out or messed up or something like that. And you think of it now, like how good kids are with the internet and what they're able to find and what they're able to dig on and things like that, whether it be pornographic or whatever, you know, this BX is talking about. You know, you hate to say it, but like, what type of effect does this have on children? Again, they're clearly already being singled out, and I don't want to say, I guess attacked is the best word to say it, because they're being dragged into this, and what is that doing to their psyche, whether it be, you know, what they deem as acceptable or what they deem as something that's not even going to harm them, you know? Like, I couldn't even consider to watch like a video of someone getting hit by anything or something like that, and people like are now just watching endless hours of violent acts and strange, you know, decapitations and things like that. And, you know, kids these days, you know, it almost seems like, you know, clearly not all of them, but some of them are just unaffected by it. Well, they'll just sit there and they'll watch this stuff over and over and over again. And you know, and it goes into the effect of so many parents now also use these tablets and devices as babysitters, right? Like I always said, like, kids raised on YouTube and things like that. Like, I know plenty of parents, you know, and I respect these people as individuals, but their parenting skill is they take the tablet, they hand it to their child, the child goes on YouTube, the child goes in the other room for 4 hours, and then the kid comes out when he needs a snack or has to go to the bathroom, and that's it. And they have no idea what the kid's watching. And they're that much better at finding things than we could ever imagine. And it's unfortunate that kids are seeing the craziest of the crazy at such a young age.
Yep.
And, you know, and like you're 100% right. God forbid you said ivermectin on fucking Twitter. Your Twitter was fucking gone.
Gone.
God forbid you said masks don't work. Gone. And for whatever reason, and this is my issue, is like, everyone's like, oh, Elon Musk's going to team up with Twitter and take everything over, and everything's going to be better. I'm like, well, if that's the case, he'd clean Twitter up right now. Like, Twitter's still a cesspool of absolute, it's great for what it is, but it's still a cesspool of absolute, you know, dark shit. You know, if you know the right places to look, and I don't, but I'm sure people do, you know, like, there's plenty of places to go and find it.
There is. And, you know, you brought something up for me, Chris, that I think that is very relevant. And I'm not advocating people give up the internet, but the way that the internet has now been infused in the average person's life, it's not healthy. It's not healthy. I mean, we're sitting here. Well, we're sitting here through the miracle of the internet and being able to host shows, and people like me are able to. And thank you again for the call. It's always great to hear from you. And you're a lifeline tonight, Chris. Thank you for calling me.
And as always, Frank, you know, for you, I do a lot. Don't worry about it.
Thank you. Well, you know, one day I might call upon you to do a service, and that's that. And I hopefully it's not too outside of your level of agreement. The Don might call you, and that day may never come. But it's not healthy. It affects everything. And, you know, he's talking about websites like back in the days. We all knew the kids who can go and find, what the hell is it called? It's like, I don't know, Best Gore, Ogrish, E-Bombs World, had a mix of funny and profane. There was a lot, but there were websites that you heard about, and we chose to stay away from. Say, I don't want to see that shit. Most people don't want to see beheadings. Most people don't want to see. I mean, it is some disturbing crap out there. You know, I mean, back in the day, there's like, you know, Faces of Death and all that other stuff that you can find, and they're being taken off of VHS and put onto the internet for the first time. But now it's like all of those sites, the content from all those sites and everything is present on each platform. And we are getting into, especially when it comes to the reels and the shorts. Now, I understand by what you're commenting on, what you're liking and all that stuff, how algorithms work, you can really fine tune your accounts to make sure that you're only seeing things that make you happy. You know, but every once in a while, you're just random death just pops up in ways that it would never happen in the past. And let me tell you something about kids. They're a lot more experimental than people like me who grow up and they know exactly what they want to see, what's going to give them bad dreams, what's going to screw with them. And you know, you're trying, when you grow up, all you're trying to do is maintain your mood. Okay, kids are just like, yeah, whatever. If you remember that movie Street Fighter with Raul Julia and Jean-Claude Van Damme, how did they create Blanca? Obviously, they injected him with some stuff and all that, whatever. But they put him into a chamber and they put an Oculus on his head, and they started showing him just war, started traumatizing him, and it's a novel way of making that come through in a movie about how you know, media can really program people for a certain, you know, sentimentality and about any number of things, and how to change their perspective and their reactions and desensitize them to things that may be in the plans as far as a new iteration of popular culture. You know, there's plenty of people out there who suspect that a lot of what we're dealing with right now, as far as just degeneracy, is something that has been slowly groomed into existence, not only because it's going to unravel the very fabric of once stable nations, but it's also going to let a lot of the degeneracy that is common in the blackmail culture and everything else at the top, the real power players in civilization, this civilization, that it's actually going to give them a pass. It actually brings more and more people into the fold of their sick little world, and it reduces to some measure the buffer between them and us, so that perhaps they can one day live free in their degeneracy. But that whole idea of turning somebody into something else because of the way that they are just fed this stuff, and the reels and the shorts, it is that quick, man. It is like less than 1 minute videos of one, and you could be just laughing at stupid fart jokes and people walking around and you know, skating videos and whatever the hell else is. But there is, you know, that it's not just all gumdrops and rainbows. And remember this. This is what I was thinking about when Chris called in. I went to look for some of the old Nexium articles that we were dealing with, and this was back in. This particular read was back in January of 2020. And this is all happening the year before, the Nexium stuff. Nexium leadership accused of illegal psychological experiments and systematic abuse in federal lawsuit. This is a cult. It was a sex cult. There's a lot of very interesting connections to very mainstream political money, political dynasties, the Bronfmans, the Clintons, the Attorney Generals, the Attorney General of New York. What's her name? Our Kirsten Gillibrand, our second senator, who I forget even exists. Kirsten Gillibrand was like everywhere for a little while. After the Nexium thing, she really she's like, I don't think she's been in front of a camera once. Really incredible stuff there. But you get down to this part of the article, and here's what it says. Psychological experiments and video of beheadings. Some cult members were subjected to a human fright experiment where they expected to hear a talk from Rainier on a video display, but instead were subjected to scenes of escalating violence, including actual, extremely graphic footage of the brutal beheading and dismemberment of 5 women in Mexico. According to the lawsuit, the members had electrodes on their skull to measure brain waves during the experiment, it said. Quote, the longer someone was immersed in this system, the more likely it became that they would suffer moderate to severe psychological and emotional injuries, including post-traumatic stress disorder and complex post-traumatic stress disorder, according to the lawsuit. Many of the plaintiffs in this action were injured in this way and still struggle with the effects of their time in Nexium and exposure to the defendants' programs. Well, I mean, it's one thing to have this Oculus strapped on your head with electrodes on your body, getting biometric readings from you while you're in some sex dungeon strapped to a chair. Obviously, there's a whole other level of stress that is added to that situation. But as far as the prolonged exposure to the kind of stuff that we know is all over the internet, does it really matter too much if you're just sleeping, if you're laying in your bed at 1 o'clock in the morning and scrolling for a half hour before bed? Or, there's a lot to be said about that, because we're doing it. Children do it to themselves voluntarily. I'm sure that the trauma programming is moved along in a significant way when people are being held against their will at a sex dungeon, a sex cult dungeon, a lair somewhere. I'm sure that the programming moves along a little bit quicker. But are we not all doing this in some way, shape, or form? You know? And then you apply that to tonight's episode with BX and what's going on just everyday platforms, because this is not about us in 1999 going on AOL and going into some, arts and entertainment chat rooms and then signing off after a couple of hours and going out with our friends, knowing that somewhere out there are some shitty websites that we have no interest in, but they're not going to make their way into AOL on the front pages of AOL or anything like that. It's just not going to be. There's no image boards. There's nothing like that. And then, of course, there's the idea that the real bad stuff is on the dark web. It's a breakaway. It's a breakaway place. A place that I have no experience around and can't talk about. But now, all of that is kind of crushed down onto individual apps. Onto the apps. There's no even distinguishing between them all. All right, so you think about that. That'll give you something to mull over until tomorrow. It's going to be a good one tomorrow. I have a lot of things to throw to the audience, and I hope that you like it. Thanks again to BX tonight. It's 8:45-ish, so we're going to get off about 15 minutes early, and some of it is phones related, and hopefully tomorrow I am deluged by you wonderful people, because there's plenty of you out there to have this show go for 5 hours, but tonight we're just coasting. Brewbark says red mercury was supposedly an integral component in the Nazis' Hanabu and the Vimanas. Oh, that's right. In India's lore. Okay. With all the ancient nuclear wars. No, I got you. And I was looking into that red mercury stuff there too. There's still a little bit more here. Let me just get that out of the way. Code name. There's vampire bats. They believe red mercury can be found in nests of bats. Code name. Some believe red mercury is a code name for very pure form of uranium or plutonium. Some believe that red mercury is a very potent conventional explosive that could be used to build small hydrogen bombs. Now, there's nothing over here about ancient prehistoric India, though I've heard about that a lot. And I'll keep an eye out for it. So thank you for the introduction. All right, you know who could probably talk about red mercury? Matt Roski. I bet you any money that he's got a line on some red mercury. So God help us all. That's all I got for you. Thanks for everything, guys and gals. I will see you tomorrow night. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Thursday awaits, and I love Thursdays. So that's that. Have a good one.
I'll catch you on the flip side.
All right, remember, everybody, in a couple of minutes on QuiteFrankly.tv, here is the After Hours. Donald Trump's remarks at Al Smith dinner, October 20th, 2016. Classic. Breitbart interviews Eric Prince, November 4th, 2016. Classic. Truth Stream Media. What is actually going on in North Carolina? Parts 1 and 2. And then we're finishing with the astounding mysteries of the self and universe by physicist Nassim Haramein. So I hope you all enjoy it. That's going to be going on QuiteFrankly.tv a couple of minutes after this show concludes. Enjoy your evening, and thank you to our super chatters, Jay Britz, Jared, and all of our gold pillars. Tomorrow is another day. Thank you for tonight. And become a postcard sponsor on Patreon. The link is in the description below or on the Sponsor Us page on QuiteFrankly.tv. We got prizes to send you, baby. Good night.
Just a little bit of a reminder, a word to the wise, if you will. Do not worry about the worries from yesterday. Leave it in the past. Move forward with confidence, because there are so many new things to be experienced today, new joy to be had. So move forward, be strong, and have a great rest of your day.